Let's debunk the biggest stress myths, that's a bit of a tongue twister, of patriarchy. This evening's lesson is drawn from the meditation manual I'm currently writing, Easy Enlightenment. Wow, I'm really having an interesting time with my diction this evening. Despite the ravings of self-help gurus, reality is not the construct of our mind. Earthquakes happen whether we believe in them or not. Illnesses come and go despite our belief systems. The same can be said of our relationships and even our mental experiences. Contemporary science has proven that maladies such as depression are not caused by stinking thinking, they're caused by systemic inflammation and gut dysbiosis and the overworking of our prefrontal cortex resulting in its exhaustion. Tend to those three things and one can overcome the symptoms of depression in less than a week, even without talk therapy. Beware the lie of karma, of spooky karma, that says, yes, the earthquake happened because as a 7-year-old you stole a cookie from your sister. No, it didn't. Beware the lies of patriarchy come to manipulate us with fear and the like. The stressors we experience, circumstantial, physical, interpersonal, or mental, are not due to our philosophical shortcomings. We do not experience stressors because we fail to witness impermanence or interdependence or believe in a real or imaginary self. Dogs and snails experience sufferings, and they're probably incapable of great philosophies. So, Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way. And that, of course, includes teachers. So the test of a teacher is not how handsome or pretty he or she may be, nor wealthy nor popular. The test of a teacher is simply this. It's, by the way, the test of a teacher is not their credentials or letters of recommendation. The test of a teacher is one thing and one thing only. When you apply teacher's advice for as little as 5 minutes every 12 hours over the span of 7 consecutive days, what are the effects you notice? Does teacher's technique help increase your peace, increase your love, increase your joy? Or does it cause your neuroses to multiply like bunnies in the springtime? I do look forward to chatting and meditating with you this evening after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent more than 8 hours a day, every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. I like to open and close a meditation by chanting a small excerpt from a lengthy meditation manual. Together. The suffering of beings is the bodhicitta or mindset of enlightenment that fully manifests while pervading all. without ever being moved, it abides equally just as the reaches of space. How ironic is it that the very act of coping with suffering, through the two truths of noticing and releasing, causes us to master the mindset of enlightenment. Nicknamed Nothing Special, this enlightened mindset is available for all beings with a rather rudimentary nervous system. Whether we call it Satipasati, Proto-Zen, Chan, Dhyana, Mahamudra, Mahasandhi, Ati-Yoga, Dzogchen, or Trekcho, it's only mindfulness and meditation. When I was a little boy, my grandmother, who was pretty much convinced I was the Messiah, had a fascinatingly clunky step stool. It contained 3 steps and then a seat, and seemed as if it had been designed by someone determined that every child should see the inside of an emergency room, or as they call it now, emergency department. Likewise, it is my intention that we shall play with 4 different exercises. First one, easy but clunky. The final one, elegant yet a little overwhelming. By progressing towards the one-syllable meditation, gradually, hopefully, it'll make your journey easier. Together, let us begin our journey with the idea of mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we mean to or not, we access our sympathetic nervous system. It is not found in the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears, but rather in the spinal cord that pierces the vertebrae. It is ensconced in the thoracic region that correlates with the rib cage. It has not evolved to support either extreme of mind blanking or active concentration. Instead, it evolved for our simple perception, that we might perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. Well then, you might ask, if we are not to actively concentrate upon our breath, then what are we to do with our breath? Come, let us treat our breath the way a piano student treats their metronome. When we notice our body breathing in, let us silently and mentally recite 12 syllables of observation, perceiving this very turbulent play of mind. When we notice our body exhaling, let us silently and mentally recite another 12 syllables of observation, relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Let's practice this for either one set of 12 breaths or one set of 16 breaths. Since I'm breathing quicker than you because of all this jibber-jabbering, I'll be doing a set of 16. How will I count to 16? Simple. Consider, if you will, your left hand. Each finger contains 4 places upon which to count. A lower set of creases, a middle set of creases, a higher set of creases, which is sufficient if you're going to count to 12, but each finger also has a tip, a 4th place to count, which is ideal if you're going to count to 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the like. I recommend advancing the tip of the left thumb during each inhalation. This might seem awkward, but play with it once every 12 hours. And within a week or 2, it'll feel like an old friend, or at least an old habit. Thank you, Kevin. That's very generous of you. We now switch gears from a 12-syllable exercise to its 3-syllable counterpart. You know, I forgot to mention something. It has been said that vulnerability is the price of mindfulness, and we are reminded of the necessity of vulnerability by the nudity of this meditational archetype. Let's review mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired to notice. We could notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. We could notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. We could notice the external and the internal, the physical and the mental, the pleasurable and the painful. We could notice the interesting and the boring, the glorious and the grotesque. A very understandable question would be, what do we do with all this stuff? Why, we meditate upon it. But how does that work? Every time we exhale, whether we mean to or not, whether we know it or not, we are accessing our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within both the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord, as well as the tippy top of our cervical region. The two have evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. So now we turn our attention, oh yes, by the way, I almost forgot. Every time we exhale, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation, let's try this again. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel less graspable. Now, since we've all evolved to think symbolically, let's sprinkle some figurative language on this. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. Any English teacher worth her salt will remind you that a simile must be relatable in order to be useful. So what is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? By the way, I must apologize. I have been I've been too enthusiastic with my physical training this week, and my autoimmune disorder is really displeased with me. So if I seem a bit befuddled, I apologize for that. I am not operating on all 8 cylinders, but what I have, I will give you. A real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void could be the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could be tantalizing to the eye, is actually non-graspable to the hand. Let's turn our attention to our next exercise. Let us practice mindfulness's perception during our inhalation by silently and mentally reciting sitting tall, thus generating a vertical traction between our tuchus and our kepi. That we might pull our head out of the warm, dark place we sometimes keep it. Let us practice meditation's release during our exhalation as silently and mentally we recite the 3-syllable verb, relaxing. Perhaps it is this non-graspability that inspires so many artists to depict this meditation archetype as being comprised of light, translucent, and intangible. The first of two fringe benefits of a consistent and correct practice of mindfulness and meditation is this. Let's explore bad news and good news. First, some bad news. When we practice active concentration and active contemplation, oddly, our blood collects at the bottom of our limbic system at our amygdala, which functions as the seat of anxiety and aggression. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Fortunately, when we replace active concentration with mindfulness, when we replace active, I should say passive mindfulness, and when we replace active contemplation with passive meditation, our blood mass shifts to a bit of tissue, 3 centimeters or so, a few centimeters behind our forehead, that the big kids call the anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy. It should therefore come as a little surprise that the great Dzogchen Lamas have always insisted that the highest love is not the result of contrived contemplation, but the fruit of mindfulness and meditation, spontaneous and uncontrived. Perhaps that is why this archetype, the Tantra couple, are depicted as beautiful. During the next during the next exercise, during our inhalation, please silently and mentally recite, notice this. And during the exhalation, please continue to recite the 3-syllable verb, relaxing. And as promised, we now come to the second fringe benefit of mindfulness and meditation. This is going to be revealed by taking a deeper look at the iconography of the archetype. As we explore the gal who's the color of a cumulus cloud, she appears to be actively sporting in tantric union. This reminds us that contrivance is always trumped by spontaneity. Her partner, however, seems to be participating in tantric yoga passively. This reminds us that not all spontaneity is created equal. And scattered spontaneity, like that good idea you get after far too many shots of tequila, that scattered spontaneity is always trumped by centered spontaneity. The centered spontaneity that is the byproduct of mindfulness and meditation. So let's take this a step further. When our choices, utterances, and deeds flow with the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity, our life could be as blissful as the real or imagined Pure Land of a Buddha of lore. Now we've reached, the one-syllable exercise. As we breathe in, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this. And as we exhale, we could silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease, which functions as a synonym of relax. Now that we've climbed to contemplative cruising altitude, together as a team, let us meditate as profoundly as Ahsoka Tano on Lothal. Ask a fundamentalist, and they will tell you the first noble truth is that everything is suffering. But that's a figurative statement, meant to remind us that there will be stressors. There will be stressful circumstances. There will be stressful physical phenomena. There will be stressful facets to our relationships. There will be stressful phenomena between our two ears at times. The presence of stress, my friends, is not an indictment, despite those who would manipulate us and tell us otherwise. Stress is like a sadistic coach. When we encounter stress, we can use it as an opportunity to put the techniques that we have been taught to the test. When we experience stress, that is an opportunity to be humble to the possibility that we aren't perfect, and that there are areas in our lives where we get to do better, and that's a good thing. Not necessarily a convenient thing, but a good thing. If the first noble truth is that there are stressors, the second noble truth is that there are things we do that exacerbate or intensify that stress. Through a quirk of evolution, we have certain survival impulses that are pretty much dualities, things that we shove away and things that we pull towards us or try to. Now, occasionally, this can be marvelously useful for survival. But when we are stuck in that mode, it can be very, very limiting. Fortunately, at this point in the practice, you've already been reminded about how to practice mindfulness and meditation. Therefore, during our inhalation, is perfectly appropriate to notice the ugly and the beautiful. And as we relax into our exhalation, those two distinctions could melt into simply perceiving sight. The discord and harmony we perceive during our inhalation can melt into just basic sound, simply sound as we relax into our exhalation. The pleasures and pains we experience during our inhalation can melt into the simple perception of sensation as we relax into our exhalation. And the same can be said of flavors, scents, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. We are wired to perceive the dualities as we breathe in, relax into their single taste of non-graspability as we breathe out. Nothing in life is permanent. So, why do we bother doing it? Because we're wired to do it. We evolved to do it. And by meditating thusly, we are taking steps to ensuring that the 3-pound supercomputer between our ears is actively cooperating with our autonomic nervous system in a way that helps us to become the people that our dogs already think we are. The third noble truth is that there is such a thing as liberation. Not liberation from the presence of stress, but from the tyranny of stress. Not liberation from the presence of duality, but from the tyranny of duality. The fourth noble truth is this. The liberation that sounds so very appealing does not come to us from the caprice of some celestial entity, nor because of some magical ritual or some gut-wrenching austerity. Au contraire, the liberation that tantalizes us is nothing more than the mastery of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. It need not take the length of time equal to the birth, duration, and collapse of a galaxy or a universe. In fact, in the second to the final passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha promises that one could master this path in less than 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. When I was a child, I found the tying of my shoes to be a daunting task. Fortunately, I received instruction. I had many opportunities to practice, and now as an adult, I, like you, have mastered tying my shoes. I, just like you, tie my shoes spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. The same way we brush our teeth, or floss, or wash our hands, they've become effortless with repetition. Some would say repetition's the mother of skill, Other would say repetition's a motherfucker. One's completely different from the other. Whether the Buddha was a real, comprised of flesh, blood, and bone, or whether the Buddha was merely a useful archetype. The mastery of the Eightfold Path has two aspects, one physical and one mental. The physical aspect is as simple as learning how to sit sustainably. Please consider this Theravadan style Buddha statue. Notice the legs are not grotesquely woven into a pretzel. One lower leg is just stacked upon the other. Just as our wrists can twist as our ulna and radius cross, the same thing happens with the crossing of our tibia and fibia, allowing us to adjust our feet so that the tops of our feet, the insteps, rest upon the surface. If we're fortunate, we'll place a folded yoga blanket between our instep and the hardwood floor upon which we sit. If we're extra fortunate, we'll place a zafu or circular meditation cushion between the yoga blanket and our tuchas. Any ballet student will tell you that we turn out from the hips because they are ball sockets and never from our knees, for they are only hinge joints. When it comes to mastering contemplative sitting, sure and steady wins the race. The first week you could sit for 5 minutes every 12 hours. The second week you could boost that to 10 minutes, the third week to 15 minutes. By the conclusion of the 15th week, sitting for 75 minutes could be effortless. For your circumstance and body and the people in your life will have gotten used to it, to the power of gradual and incremental progression. So, if you're clever, you will set the timer on your smartphone. And what will you do with your brain while you're waiting for your 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes to elapse? Well, you're welcome to join me on the live streams, whether you are catching them live or recorded. YouTube's pretty good about saving my live streams. The mindfulness and meditation that we have been playing with for the last 35 minutes are the seventh and eighth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Impermanence or change comprises the right view. That is the first fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. And it becomes obvious to us during each inhalation, as we notice the changes, sometimes subtle and sometimes coarse, the changes in our sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. The changes in our emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. With the changing of the seasons, we see the impermanence of a year. With the waxing and the waning of the moon, we see the impermanence of a month. With the rising and the setting of the sun, we see the impermanence of a day. And with the swelling and the sinking of our ribcage, we feel the impermanence of a breath. Ever-changing, one and all, there is nothing permanent to grasp. Let us explore interdependence. All that we choose, utter, and do affects others, other things, and other beings, and other phenomena. Sometimes directly, other times indirectly, sometimes immediately, sometimes eventually, sometimes overtly, sometimes subtly, sometimes actually, other times potentially. Perhaps that is why 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertains to loving kindness. The second fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path could be described by the Dzogchen Lamas of Tibet as wishing love. It has been described as others as the essence of mental morality. The third fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path could be described as kind communication. One of my teachers used to insist that we must tell the truth gently. Doing so is the essence of interpersonal morality. The fourth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path could be described as kind conduct. The late Tibetan teacher, Karma Chakme Rinpoche, insisted that the essence of the Praktimoksha vows, all the hundreds of the Praktimoksha vows, all boil down, all distill down simply to non-violence. The essence of physical morality. One of the easiest ways to practice non-violence is to choose a whole food vegan diet. The vegan aspect of the diet is choosing to minimize the amount of the exploitation of others that are done by us directly or through our consumer dollar. The whole food aspect is us practicing nonviolence towards our own bodies. The fifth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path could be described as kind commerce. Let us not be the proverbial Karen forever trying to get someone fired. Let us not be the proverbial Chad always trying to put someone's business out of business. Rather, let us be defined by kindness and cooperation. Spoke with a man who fancied himself pious, and he said it's not enough to want to do good. You have to figure out every conceivable practical application. And then until you can, you must do nothing. What a mook. The second fringe benefit of training in mindfulness and meditation is that we experience the sixth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, the effortless effort that flows from love's centered spontaneity generated by mindfulness and meditation. Flow from centered spontaneity. And from that, your intentions will be loving, your speech will be loving, your actions will be loving. Sometimes you will act in a way that delights everyone everywhere. Most often not. Be humble, learn, persist in centered spontaneity, which is the effortless effort, and allow everything to take care of itself. Just as it's folly to fight a spinning gyroscope, similarly, when we live in harmony with the mechanisms of our central nervous system, our life could be as blissful as the real or imagined paradise of a Buddha of lore. Pain is not a test of your fortitude to be ignored or endured. Pain is our bodies trying to communicate its unmet needs to us. Do not make the mistake I did. Ignore my pain and injure my joints. Sometimes pain is your body's way of saying, that's enough of that, go take a rest. And that's fine. When we cooperate with our body, we'll be able to meditate longer and longer with greater and greater ease. Sometimes our body screams for fresh air, sunshine, and exercise. Sometimes our body weeps for water or additional quantities of fruit, vegetable, grains, seeds, nuts, and legumes. There is no shame in adjusting your posture. The first enlightenment factor is mindfulness. We get to be mindful of the glorious and the grotesque, the interesting and the boring. The second enlightenment factor is investigation or curiosity. Remembering that it is not our job to be defensive, to defend ourselves or condemn ourselves, but to simply notice and release. The third enlightenment factor is energy. When you have energy, practice. When you don't have energy, rest. Let us seal this evening's practice the way we opened it, with a brief chant. Whoops, wrong button. Let's try that again. The suffering of beings is the bodhicitta or mindset of enlightenment that fully manifests while pervading on, without ever being moved at all by its equality, just as the reaches of space. Oh, where is the cursor? Where has the cursor gone? Well, this is befuddling. Where is the cursor? Whew. Okay, let's see. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 and 3/4 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the force be with you always.